My parents called off my wedding just 1 week before the ceremony so they could hand my wedding savings over to my unfaithful sister. They had no idea I was already planning to elope to Paris and preparing to sue them for every dollar they took. The mahogany grandfather clock in the hallway of my parents' house in Greenwich, Connecticut, chimed exactly 7 times, a hollow, rhythmic sound that had punctuated every significant disappointment of my childhood. It was Tuesday, October 14th, exactly 1 week before I was scheduled to marry Liam, a neurosurgeon I had met 4 years ago during a charity gala. We were sitting in the formal dining room, a space reserved for Thanksgiving dinners and family tribunals. My mother, Eleanor, was weeping into a lace handkerchief, a prop she utilized whenever she needed to deflect accountability. My father, Richard, a man who had spent 30 years in corporate insurance and knew the price of everything but the value of nothing, sat at the head of the table, his fingers steepled in a gesture of forced gravity. My sister, Jessica, was not there. She was, presumably, at the Ritz-Carlton downtown, racking up a room service bill that she expected someone else to pay. I sat across from them, my hands folded on the table, my engagement ring, a vintage emerald cut that Liam had bought with his own money, catching the light from the chandelier. I didn't cry. I didn't tremble. I was 32 years old, a senior forensic auditor for a top-tier firm in Manhattan, and I had spent the last 6 months documenting the financial pathology of this family. I knew what they were going to say before they said it. I knew why the bank account balance on my wedding fund had dropped to 0 at 9:02 a.m. that morning. I knew about the wire transfer, but I let them speak. I let them dig the hole. Lauren, my father began, clearing his throat, avoiding my eyes. We have to make a difficult decision. We have to call off the wedding. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating, and entirely performative. They waited for my reaction, for the scream, the tears, the begging. They expected the daughter who had always sought their approval to shatter. Instead, I simply looked at the centerpiece, a bowl of wax fruit that hadn't moved since 1998. Call it off? I repeated, my voice flat. The vendors are paid. The guests are flying in. The venue is non-refundable. It's not about the vendors, darling. My mother sobbed, reaching a hand across the table that I didn't take. It's about family. It's about Jessica. She's in a crisis. Ah, yes, the crisis. The eternal recurring season of Jessica. My sister, 2 years older and perpetually 16 in emotional maturity, was the golden child. She was the one who got the modeling lessons while I got math tutors. She was the one who got the BMW for her 16th birthday while I got a bus pass. And she was the one who had married a hedge fund manager named Todd 3 years ago in a ceremony that cost $250,000, paid for by my parents, only to blow it all up last week. Jessica is getting a divorce, my father said, as if announcing a death. Todd kicked her out. He found some texts. He found videos, Richard. I corrected him, my tone clinical. He found videos of her with his personal trainer, Kyle, and with the pool boy, and with his junior analyst. Let's be specific, my mother gasped. Lauren, how can you be so cruel? She is devastated. Todd is leaving her with nothing. He had a prenup she signed without reading because she was too busy planning the honeymoon, I added. And now she needs a lawyer, a very expensive lawyer, and she needs an apartment, and she needs support. Exactly, my father said, seizing the lifeline. She needs resources, and, unfortunately, our liquidity is tied up. The market has been unkind. This was the first lie. I knew my father's portfolio. I knew he had $2.4 million in diversified assets, but he was stingy. He hated liquidating stocks. He preferred cash that was easily accessible. Cash like the $52,400 I had saved over 3 years and deposited into the Miller Family Trust savings account, a joint account my father had insisted we use for vendor disbursement convenience. When the wedding planning began, I was naive then. I thought that at 32 the dynamic had changed. I thought my money was safe. So, I said, leaning back, because Jessica cheated on her husband and violated her prenup, you are canceling my wedding to pay for her divorce. We aren't canceling it forever, my mother pleaded, her eyes wide and wet. Just postponing until things settle down. We need the funds, Lauren. We withdrew the wedding savings this morning. It's already gone to the retainer for Jessica's attorney, Mr. Sterling. He charges $850 an hour. He's the only one who can save her. You withdrew my money, I stated. The money I earned. The money I deposited from my bonuses. It was a family account, my father said, his voice hardening. Legally, it was a joint account. We did what we had to do. You're strong, Lauren. You're successful. You can wait. Jessica is fragile. She can't survive this without help. I looked at them, really looked at them. I saw the fear in my mother's eyes, not for me, but for the social scandal of a divorced daughter. I saw the arrogance in my father's jaw, the belief that he could move pieces on a board and everyone would just accept their new positions. They thought I was the same doormat I had been at 12, giving up my room so Jessica could have a walk-in closet. They thought this was a negotiation. They didn't know that I had been planning for this moment since the day Jessica sent me a drunk text 3 months ago complaining about Todd being boring. That text was the first red flag. The second was when my father asked for the login credentials to the vendor portal just to check the contracts. I didn't give them to him. Instead, I hired a private investigator. I hired Mr. Vance, a former forensic accountant for the IRS, who now specialized in high-conflict family asset recovery. I paid him a retainer of $5,000. It was the best investment I ever made. Vance had been monitoring the family trust account. He had alerted me at 9:05 a.m. regarding the transfer. He had also monitored Jessica's movements. He knew she wasn't at a lawyer's office. She was currently at the spa at the Mandarin Oriental, spending the first chunk of my wedding money on a trauma recovery facial. I stood up. I smoothed the skirt of my charcoal pencil skirt. I see, I said. So the decision is made. The money is gone. We'll pay you back, my father said dismissively. Once the settlement comes through, or next year, when the market turns. Of course, I said. Well, I suppose I should go tell Liam. Don't make a scene, my mother warned. We'll send out an email to the guests. We'll say it was a mutual decision, postponed due to unforeseen professional obligations. Unforeseen professional obligations, I repeated. That sounds very professional. I walked out of the dining room, down the hallway where my graduation photos were noticeably smaller than Jessica's pageant portraits, and out the front door. I didn't slam it. I closed it gently, with the finality of a coffin lid. As I walked to my car, my phone buzzed. It was Liam. Hey, he said, his voice warm and steady. Did they do it? They did it, I said, getting into my Volvo. Verbatim, they took the money. All $52,400 transferred to Sterling's firm, but I suspect a chunk of it was diverted to Jessica's personal account. Okay, Liam said. Are you okay? I'm angry, I said, starting the engine. But mostly, I'm ready. Is everything set for Friday? Tickets are confirmed, Liam said. Air France Flight 007, JFK to Charles de Gaulle, 6:30 p.m. The chateau in the Loire Valley is prepped, the officiant is ready, and your dress is already packed in the carry-on. And the lawsuit? I asked. My lawyer filed the complaint electronically 10 minutes ago, Liam replied. Breach of contract, conversion of funds, and civil theft. Since you have the deposit slips proving the source of funds was 100% your income, and the text messages where your father acknowledged the money was for the wedding vendors, it's a slam dunk. The process server will meet them at the rehearsal dinner venue. Oh wait, there is no rehearsal dinner. No, I said, a cold smile touching my lips. But there is a family brunch on Sunday that they think I'm attending to. Make peace with Jessica. The server can meet them there. I love you, Lauren, Liam said. I love you too. I'll see you at home. I drove away from the house I grew up in, feeling the invisible tether snap. But to understand the sheer magnitude of the trap I had laid for them, you have to understand the history of the abuse. It wasn't physical. It was financial and emotional, a slow drip of devaluation that had started the day Jessica was born. My parents were obsessed with appearance. Jessica, with her blonde hair and blue eyes, was their trophy. I, with my dark hair and serious demeanor, was the utility player. I was the one who did the taxes. I was the one who remembered birthdays. I was the one who lent Jessica money for rent when she forgot to pay it. Money I never saw again. The wedding savings was the line in the sand. I had started saving for it 3 years ago, before I even met Liam. I put away $1,500 a month. I skipped vacations. I drove an 8-year-old car. I brought my lunch to work. That $52,400 was my freedom fund. When I got engaged, my father insisted on the joint account. It looks better for the vendors, he had said. It shows family unity. I resisted, but my mother cried. She said I was being difficult. She said I didn't trust them, so I relented. But I wasn't stupid. I kept copies of every check. I noted wedding fund, Lauren's salary on the memo line of every deposit. I saved every email where my father confirmed the balance. I created a paper trail so thick it could choke a horse. And then there was Paris. The elopement wasn't a backup plan initially. It was a dream Liam and I shared. We both hated the idea of a big Greenwich wedding. We hated the stuffy country club, the distant relatives, the performative speeches, but my parents insisted. You have to have a wedding, my mother had said, for the family, for appearances. So we agreed, on the condition that I paid for it. I thought that by paying for it, I would control it. I was wrong. As the date approached, Jessica's marriage began to implode. I saw the signs, the hushed phone calls, the way my mother started asking me if I really needed the expensive florist, the way my father started making comments about liquid assets. I knew they were coming for my money. It was inevitable. So 2 months ago, Liam and I made a pact. We booked the elopement. We booked the chateau. We bought the tickets. We kept the big wedding on the books as a decoy, a honeypot to see if they would actually steal from me. It was a test, a $52,400 test, and they failed it spectacularly. When I got home to our apartment in the city, Liam was waiting with a glass of wine and the binder. The binder. It was my magnum opus. It contained everything. The forensic trace of the wire transfer, the screenshots of Jessica's affair from a burner Instagram account she thought was private, the invoices for her spending, and the draft of the lawsuit. How did she look? Liam asked, handing me the wine. Like a victim, I said, kicking off my heels. She wasn't there, of course, too distressed. Probably getting a massage. Well, Liam said, opening the binder to page 42. Mr. Vance called. He found something interesting. The transfer to Sterling's law firm, it wasn't the full amount. They sent $25,000 to the lawyer. The other $27,400, it went to a Shell LLC registered in Jessica's name. She's hiding money, I said, realization dawning. She's hiding my money from her husband's forensic accountants, so she has a stash. Exactly, Liam said, which means your parents didn't just pay for her legal defense. They facilitated bankruptcy, fraud, and money laundering. And since they used a wire transfer across state lines, that's federal. I looked at the document. There it was, a transfer to JM Consulting LLC. They are going to jail, I whispered. Not just sued, jail. If we report it, Liam said. Are you ready for that? I thought about the wax fruit. I thought about the graduation graduation photos. I thought about Lily, the freezing cold on the porch. No, that was a different memory, a different life. I thought about the time Jessica stole my identity to get a credit card in college, and my parents made me pay it off to protect her credit score. I'm ready, I said, but not yet. We leave for Paris on Friday, we get married on Saturday, we honeymoon for a week. We let them think they won. We let them think I'm sitting at home, crying, canceled, and broke. And then, when we land back in New York, we drop the hammer. The next 3 days were a masterclass in acting. I sent a sobbing email to the guest list, as instructed, due to unforeseen family circumstances. My mother called me 5 times a day to check on me, which was really just her way of ensuring I wasn't going to blow up Jessica's spot. I played the part. I sounded small. I sounded defeated. I just don't know what to do. I told her on Thursday. I feel so lost. It's for the best, darling, she cooed. Jessica needs us right now. You understand? I do, I said. I really do. On Friday morning, I packed my suitcase. Oh, not the big one. The sleek, carry-on Rimowa. I packed the white silk slip dress I had bought in secret. I packed the veil. I packed the file. We took an Uber to JFK. We checked in. We went to the lounge. I turned off my phone. I didn't block them. I just silenced the notifications. I wanted to see the panic when I didn't show up for the reconciliation brunch on Sunday. As the plane taxied down the runway, watching the lights of New York fade into the distance, I felt a lightness I hadn't felt in decades. I was leaving behind the role of the scapegoat. I was leaving behind the dutiful daughter. I was flying toward a future where I was the protagonist. We landed in Paris on Saturday morning. The city was gray and beautiful. We took a train to the Loire Valley. The chateau was ancient, smelling of lavender and old stone. We got married in the garden, just the two of us and the officiant. I wore the silk dress. Liam wore his tuxedo. We exchanged vows that were real, not performative. I promise to protect you, Liam said. I promise to be your partner. I promise that what is ours stays ours. I cried then. Real tears. Not the tears my mother wanted, but the tears of a woman who had finally been chosen first. We spent the week eating cheese, drinking wine, and not checking our emails. It was bliss. But the world keeps turning, and the silence from Greenwich was growing loud. On the day we were scheduled to fly back, I finally turned my phone's data back on. The notifications flooded in like a tsunami. 47 missed calls from Mom, 22 from Dad, 15 from Jessica, and a string of text messages that escalated from concern to rage. Mom, where are you? The brunch started 30 minutes ago. Mom, Lauren, pick up. This is childish. Dad, if you don't answer, I'm calling the police. Jessica, you selfish bitch. How could you not come? I need you to sign a character affidavit for my custody hearing. And then, the last one, sent an hour ago from my father. Dad, we were served with papers. What is this? Call me immediately. I smiled. I showed the phone to Liam. It's time, I said. We boarded the plane. The flight back was different. I wasn't escaping. I was returning to conquer. I spent the 7 hours reviewing the legal strategy with Liam. We weren't just suing for the money. We were suing for damages. We were suing for emotional distress. And we were filing a tip with the IRS regarding the JM Consulting LLC. When we landed at JFK, it was raining. We went through customs. We got our bags. And there, waiting at the arrivals gate, looking like a wet cat in a designer trench coat, was my father. He had tracked my flight. I forgot I had shared my location with him years ago for safety. He looked furious. He looked terrified. He marched up to us, ignoring Liam completely. Lauren, he shouted, causing a few tourists to turn their heads. What the hell is going on? A lawsuit? Are you insane? You're suing your own family? I stopped. I adjusted my grip on my suitcase. I looked at him, really looked at him, and realized he looked small. Hello, Richard, I said. I'm not suing my family. I'm suing a group of individuals who conspired to embezzle my assets. And by the way, this is my husband, Liam. We got married on Saturday. My father's jaw dropped. Married? But the wedding was canceled. Your wedding was canceled, I said, holding up my left hand where a new, simple gold band sat next to the emerald. Mine was perfect, and it was paid for with the money I had in my personal checking account. The money you stole? That's what the lawsuit is for, plus interest. You can't do this, he hissed, stepping closer. Jessica is suicidal. This will push her over the edge. If you pursue this, you are dead to us. I've been dead to you for years, I said calmly. I was just a bank account with a pulse. But the account is closed, Richard, and the audit is just beginning. I stepped around him. Liam stepped in between us, his shoulder brushing my father's, a subtle reminder of the new physical boundary. Excuse us, Liam said. We have a honeymoon to finish. We walked toward the exit, the automatic doors sliding open to the cool New York air. I didn't look back. I knew he was standing there, watching his utility player walk off the field. I hailed a taxi. We got in. Where to? The driver asked. Manhattan, I said. And then, to the district attorney's office. I have a crime to report. The fluorescent lights of the Manhattan District Attorney's Fraud Bureau hummed with a frequency that seemed to vibrate against my exhausted retinas as I sat across from Assistant District Attorney Sarah Jenkins at 4:15 p.m. on Monday, October 20th. My husband, Liam, sat next to me, his hand resting on the small of my back, a silent anchor in the sterile room that smelled of toner and stale coffee. On the metal desk between us lay the binder, open to page 42, the page that detailed the wire transfer of $27,400 to JM Consulting LLC. Ada Jenkins, a woman with sharp eyes and a reputation for dismantling white-collar syndicates, was reviewing the forensic forensic report provided by Mr. Vance. She didn't look shocked, she looked focused. To her, this wasn't a family tragedy, it was a fact pattern. Let me get this straight, Mrs. Miller Evans, she said, glancing at my new marriage license. Your parents withdrew funds from a joint account that was capitalized exclusively by your income. They claimed it was for legal fees for your sister's divorce. However, the funds were traced to a shell company registered to your sister, which then used the money for non-legal expenditures? Correct, I said, my voice steady despite the jet lag crashing over me. And because the transfer originated in Connecticut and the recipient bank is in New York, it constitutes wire fraud across state lines. Additionally, my private investigator found that J.M. Consulting filed no tax returns last year despite receiving consulting fees from my father's business accounts as well. This isn't a one-time emergency withdrawal. It's a pattern of structuring to hide assets. Jenkins looked up, a flicker of interest igniting in her eyes. Structuring, she repeated. That brings the IRS into play. If your father is funneling money to your sister to avoid gift taxes or to hide assets from her husband's divorce attorneys, that is conspiracy to commit bankruptcy fraud. She closed the file. I can open an investigation. But you need to understand, Lauren, once the wheel starts turning, you can't stop it. If we find evidence of systemic fraud, your parents could be looking at prison time, not just a fine. Prison. Are you prepared to testify against them? I thought about the porch in Greenwich. I thought about the wax fruit. I thought about the years of being the utility player while Jessica was the star. I thought about my wedding fund, hours of my life sold for a paycheck, being used to buy Jessica a soft landing she didn't earn. I'm prepared, I said. They made their choice when they pressed send on that transfer. Now I'm making mine. We left the DA's office an hour later with a case number, NY234490. The walk back to our apartment felt different. The city felt sharper, clearer. We ordered Thai food and sat on the floor of our living room, ignoring the 63 voicemail messages that had accumulated since we left the airport. The next morning, the Civil War began. My lawyer, Mr. Sterling, not to be confused with Jessica's shark, though they ran in the same circles, had the process server deliver the lawsuit to my parents' house at 7 a.m. sharp. My father was served while getting his morning paper. My mother was served while drinking her coffee. According to the text I received from my father 3 minutes later, it did not go over well. You ungrateful brat, the text read, all caps, no punctuation. Drop this immediately. You are ruining the family. I didn't reply. I simply took a screenshot and emailed it to Sterling to add to the harassment file. By Wednesday, the narrative control began. My mother posted a long, vague status on Facebook about children who lose their way and the pain of betrayal, accompanied by a photo of her and Jessica holding hands. It was a masterful piece of victim playing designed to solicit sympathy from the Greenwich Country Club set. I didn't engage. I let them talk. I knew that in a legal battle, social media posts are just admissible evidence of mindset. The real blow came on Friday, when we received the response to our emergency motion to freeze the assets of JM Consulting. The judge granted it. Jessica's accounts were locked. That afternoon, my phone rang. It was Jessica. I answered this time. I wanted to hear it. You froze my money, she shrieked, her voice cracking with hysteria. I'm at the lawyer's office and my card was declined. Todd is going to win. He's going to take everything. It's not your money, Jessica, I said calmly, looking at the view of the Empire State Building from my window. It's my wedding venue. It's my catering. It's my dress. Or rather, it was. Now, it's evidence. I needed it, she sobbed. Todd cut me off. I have nothing. How can you be so selfish? You have a job. You have Liam. I have nothing. You had a husband, I reminded her. You had a prenup. You had a $250,000 wedding. You squandered it all. And now you want me to pay for your mistakes? No. Tell mom and dad to sell the BMW if you need cash. Oh wait, they can't. Because I put a lis pendens on their property yesterday to secure my claim. The silence on the other end was profound. You put a lien on the house? She whispered. I did, I said. It's standard procedure when recovering stolen assets. Good luck with the divorce, Jess. I hung up. The discovery phase of the lawsuit was where the true horror of my family's financial pathology was revealed. We subpoenaed the bank records for JM Consulting. It wasn't just my $27,400. Over the last 3 years, my father had transferred nearly $150,000 into that account. Ostensibly for consulting services, the money was immediately spent on things that were definitely not business expenses. November 12th, $4,200 at Christian Louboutin. January 4th, $8,500 for a wellness retreat in Tulum. March 15th, $12,000 for interior design services at her apartment. My father had been funding her lifestyle under the table to help her evade taxes and to keep Todd from knowing how much she was actually spending. But the most damning discovery was a series of emails between my father and Jessica, dated 2 days before they canceled my wedding. Jessica, I need the money, Dad. Todd found the texts. He's filing on Monday. I need a retainer for Sterling. Dad, I'm tapped out, honey. The market is down. Jessica, use Lauren's fund. She won't mind. She can wait. She's always been the understanding one. Just tell her it's a loan. Dad, it's risky. If she finds out, Jessica, she won't do anything. She's Lauren. She'll cry and then she'll fix it. Please, Daddy, I'm scared. Dad, okay, I'll do it Tuesday. We'll tell her it's for the family. Reading those emails felt like having a rib removed without anesthesia. She won't do anything. She's Lauren. That was their estimation of me. I was a a resource to be harvested, a doormat to be walked upon. They didn't see me as a person. They saw me as an insurance policy. I forwarded the emails to ADA Jenkins. Intent, I wrote in the subject line, conspiracy to commit fraud. The criminal investigation moved faster than the civil one. In December, 2 months after the wedding, the district attorney's office invited my parents in for a proffer session. It's a polite way of saying, come tell us the truth before we indict you. They arrived with a high-priced criminal defense attorney, looking pale and shaken. I wasn't in the room, but Jenkins told me about it later. They tried to stick to the family loan story. They claimed J.M. Consulting was a legitimate business entity. Then Jenkins showed them the Tulum receipts. She showed them the Louboutin invoice. And then she dropped the bomb, tax evasion. By claiming the transfers as business expenses for his own company, my father had defrauded the IRS. By failing to report the income, Jessica had defrauded the IRS. And by using the funds to hide assets from Todd, they had committed bankruptcy fraud. The family loan excuse crumbled instantly. My father tried to take the fall. He tried to say it was all his idea, but Jessica, true to her nature, turned on him. When she realized she was facing potential jail time, she offered up her phone. She gave them the texts where my father instructed her on how to fake the invoices. She threw him under the bus to save her own skin. It was the ultimate betrayal of the golden child, and it broke him. The plea deals were announced in February. My father pled guilty to 1 count of tax fraud and 1 count of wire fraud. He was sentenced to 2 years of house arrest, 5 years of probation, and a fine of $250,000 plus restitution to the IRS. My mother, who had signed the joint tax returns, received probation. Jessica pled guilty to filing a false instrument and was given community service and probation, but the real punishment came from her divorce. Todd's lawyers used the criminal plea to void the prenup entirely. She walked away with nothing. No alimony, no settlement, just her consulting LLC, which was now dissolved. As for my civil suit, we settled. My father agreed to pay me back the $52,400 with interest, plus $15,000 in legal fees. He liquidated his portfolio to do it. The check arrived on a Tuesday in March. I held it in my hand, looking at his signature. It was shaky. I deposited it into a new account, solely in my name, labeled Future. The social fallout was absolute. In Greenwich, the news of the indictment spread like a virus. My parents were asked to resign from the country club. Their friends stopped calling. The shame of a criminal conviction for fraud was a stain that no amount of lace handkerchiefs could wipe away. They sold the house. They had to. Between the legal fees, the fines, and the loss of status, they couldn't afford the upkeep. They moved to a condo in Florida, a small gated community where no one knew who they were. I didn't help them move. I didn't say goodbye. I simply ceased to exist in their world. 5 years have passed since that day in the DA's office. I am 37 now. Liam and I have a brownstone in Brooklyn and a 2-year-old son named Julian. We go to Paris every year for our anniversary. We stay at the same chateau. We drink the same wine. My parents have never met Julian. They send cards sometimes, forwarded from their address in Boca Raton. Grandma and Grandpa miss you, the cards say. I throw them in the recycling bin. Jessica lives in Ohio now. She remarried a guy she met at a bar who runs a landscaping business. I hear she posts a lot on Facebook about haters and new beginnings. I don't follow her. I don't look her up. The indifference I feel is vast and cool, like the ocean. Sometimes when I look at my bank account, at the savings I have built for Julian's education, I think about that email. She's Lauren. She'll cry and then she'll fix it. They were half right. I did cry. But I didn't fix it for them. I fixed it for myself. I learned that forgiveness isn't about letting people back in. It's about letting go of the hope that they will ever be different. I learned that the most expensive thing you can buy is your own freedom, and it is worth every single penny. On quiet Sunday mornings, when the light hits the floorboards of our home, a home bought with money that is strictly, legally ours, I look at Liam playing with our son. I look at the peace we have built, and I realize that the wedding they canceled was the best gift they ever gave me. It forced me to walk away from the altar of their approval and build a temple of my own. The lawsuit wasn't about the money. It was about the price tag of my dignity, and $52,400 was a bargain. I sip my coffee, check the time on the microwave. It's 9:02 a.m. and smile. The balance is positive. The ledger is closed, and I am finally, truly solvent.